Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Magical Musketeer update. So I'm really excited to do this one because Magical Musketeer Max actually got released, which is extremely exciting for me because I really love this deck, and I want to show this one off to you guys. So, without further ado guys, let's get straight on this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell in there so you can become a part of Notification Squad, and let's get straight on into this. So this card actually really busts the deck. It makes it really good, and we will actually go over his effect at the end of the video. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, you're going to be playing, as always, 3 copies of Magical Musketeer Caspar. So the reason you play 3 Caspars is because all the Magical Musketeers share the ability that during either player's turn, you can activate Magical Musketeer spells or traps from your hand. And if a spell or trap is activated in this card's column, you get to add 1 Magical Musketeer from your deck to your hand. Any Magical Musketeer card. That's Caspar's particular ability, but all of them share the ability that you can activate during either player's turn Magical Musketeer spells and traps from your hand, which is really cool. So basically, if Caspar is in the middle column right here, during either player's turn, I could activate something like Magical Musketeer Desperado from my hand and then pop an opponent's card, which is pretty cool. And then Caspar gets an effect because it was in the same column as him. And if my opponent activates something in the same column, I still get the same effect, which is pretty neat. So then we're playing 3 copies of Magical Musketeer Kid Brave. Kid Brave isn't one of those really good consistency cards because his effect is if a spell or trap is activated in the same column as him, you get to discard a Magical Musketeer card and then draw 2 cards, which is a really nice effect to be able to draw those extra cards and get into more play pieces or combo pieces that you can actually work with. So then I play only 2 copies of Doc like normal. You only want to play 2 copies of Doc because his effect is that when a spell or trap is activated in his column, you get to add a Magical Musketeer from your grave to your hand. Hence, the Doctor, which is pretty cool because you can add stuff back like your Caspars or your Kid Braves, or even if you use up your maxes, you can add a max back to your extra deck, which is pretty cool. So that's a really interesting card. Then I play 3 copies of Starfire. I think Starfire is one of the better ones, and I know some people played it too. I think 3 is the best number because if a Magical Musketeer card is activated in her column, you get to special summon a Magical Musketeer from your deck that's level 4 or lower. The only one that's even higher than level 4 is Yugioh, and we don't play Yugioh. I thought about it, but I didn't. The next one that we play for our 1-ups is 1 copy of Calamity. Calamity is really good. I want to play Calamity at more than 1, but she's good late game, not early game. Because her effect is if a spell or trap is activated in her column, you can special summon a Magical Musketeer from your grave in defense position. So she's like walking Monster Reborn, which I think is really good, but at the same time, it's kind of... how do I put this? It's kind of sucky at the beginning of the game, but later in the game it can really help you out because you can make stuff like Utopia double with just 1 Calamity and a Desperado, which is really nice because you pop something on your opponent's side of the field, revive like Starfire in the grave, and then overlay them both into Utopia double, which then it turns into Utopia regular, and then you attack with 5k and then do double or nothing. Then we play Magical Musketeer Wild, 1 copy of Wild. Basically, he lets you shuffle 3 Magical Musketeers from your graveyard into your deck, and then you get to draw a card. So it's a really good late game card if you do get into that late game. Early game, he's not quite as good, but by turn 3, you ought to be able to activate its effect with how quick the deck works. Then for the hand traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and 2 copies of Effect Veiler. I think that this is the best ratio for hand traps, and so that's the ratio I like to stick with. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So we do actually play spells and traps in this deck. This is one of those unique decks that does benefit from that. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Call by the Grave. You need Call by the Grave in here to stop your opponent from hand trapping you. That's pretty much the only reason. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because you can activate this under a Magical Musketeer, bring 1 back, and then trigger their effect that you activated. Like, for instance, if I have Caspar here activate Monster Reborn, and then Kid Brave's in the grave, I get this, a search, and I get this in a search at the same time. So Monster Reborn essentially becomes a search and a special summon, depending on which one I lay it with. So then you play 1 copy of Double or Nothing, which is just for Utopia. the Light or Utopia Double to be able to get that 10k attack, which can just catch our opponent off guard. 1 copy of Magical Musketeer Steady Hands. Steady Hands doubles the attack points of one of your Magical Musketeer monsters, which can be beneficial, but it's just a really good one of. Then we play 3 copies of Cross Domination. Cross Domination is the best spell in this deck. It's almost like another hand trap. You get to target a face-up monster on the field, and until the end phase of this turn, its attack and defense become 0, and also its effects are negated. And since it's a quick play, you can chain it on your opponent's turn to be able to like hit a Boral Sword and go to 0 and negate its effect for the turn, which is really cool. Then, for the last spell, we play 3 copies of Ties of the Brethren. Ties of the Brethren is really good in this deck, and it's really, really beneficial because you can go into stuff like, your combo pieces are, if you have like Caspar, Kid Brave, or Doc on the field, you can special summon the other 2 off of Ties of the Brethren, which can get you all of them on the field. And that's why I actually play all the level 4s, is because it keeps them live as well. Because these are all 3 targets for each other, which really helps out a lot. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 1 copy of Dancing Needle. Dancing Needle lets you banish 3 cards from the graveyard, which is pretty cool, but you have to target them. But that's still not that big of a deal, but it's really beneficial to be able to hit certain things in the graveyard that your opponent might need as combo pieces later on, depending on the deck that you're playing against. 1 copy of Fiendish Deal. This one's a little bit dangerous because if you activate this one in a column that a Magical Musketeer is in, it's a continuous trap, so it stays there, so it kind of blocks that particular Magical Musketeer from activating anymore, which kind of sucks, but it works out. Its effect is if this card, Magical Musketeers you control cannot be destroyed by a card effect, and if this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can add a Magical Musketeer card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And you can only activate 1 of it per turn, which is not that big of a deal. And then, because we only play 1. Then I play Double Crooked Crown. I feel like Double Crooked Crown is the better ratio of this card because I want to see it quick. Basically what this does is during your main phase, you can special summon a Magical Musketeer from your hand. And if you do, your opponent's if your opponent's main monster zone in that monster zone current column is unused, that monster zone cannot be used until the end phase of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. So, like, if I have this in my hand, I can activate it and then put this here, and so that monster zone cannot be used above the Caspar, which is pretty cool on my opponent's side of the field. And since it's once per turn, or during the main phase, you can do it on your main phase or your opponent's main phase, which is really, really cool to be able to do to fill up your board. And that's something that Magical Musketeers had a big problem with, is that they had a recovery issue where if they didn't get their first summon off, they were kind of sitting ducks. And now they're not because of Crooked Crown. So then we play 3 copies of Last Stand. Last Stand is when this card is when your opponent activates a spell or trap while you control a Magical Musketeer, negate the activation if you do destroy it. This card is busted. It stops Call by the Grave. It stops Raigekis. It stops Sky Strikers. It stops it all. Like, you're not worried about anything in this deck because you have so many hand traps to deal with so many problematic cards. Then, for the last 3 traps, we play 3 copies of Desperado. Now, this effect is going to sound underwhelming, but it is one of my favorite cards in the deck because it's so simple. Basically, activate it, destroy a card on the field, and if you do, you send this card to the grave. That's all it does. Like, you just pop 1 card. And it's so disruptive because you can do it at any time, and there's no cost. So you just do a 1-for-1 on your opponent, but they could have, like, invested a lot into whatever that you're hitting. So this card is really, really, really good. And it's really beneficial. I really like having this card in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Magical Musketeer Max. I play 3 because why not? It's a good card. This card is actually busted in my opinion. Let's zoom in and read its effect really quick since it's new. Basically, it takes a level 8 or lower Magical Musketeer to summon this card, and then when it's summoned, you can activate one of these effects. Or you can activate one of these effects if this card is link summoned. Add a Magical Musketeer spell or traps from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, which if they control 3, you get to add 3. And then special summon Magical Musketeers with different names from your deck up to the number of spell and traps your opponent currently controls, and you can only activate its effect once per turn. that card is actually busted. That card gives you so much advantage in the game that it's just crazy, because you can even link it away and it's just a link 1. Like, it's so easy to just normal summon something, trigger like Caspar's ability by activating something, link into this, and then special summon a whole bunch of magical musketeers if your opponent overextended, and then link them away for something like Boral Sword, which I have to give a quick shout out to my buddy Lane, because he actually helped me get my secret rare Boral Sword that I did not pull from any of my box openings, which kind of sucked. But he came through and was like, yeah, I got you, man. I got your Boral Sword right here. So, the other cards that we're playing is a Utopia engine, which is a 5-card Utopia engine, and I will lay these out individually. We play 2 copies of Utopia. You have to play 2 copies of Utopia for this to work. We play 1 copy of Utopia Prime to make Utopia the Lightning, which is a 5k beat stick, essentially. Then we play 1 copy of Utopia Double, which you make this first, add double or nothing to your hand, and then overlay on top of this the Utopia at 5,000, and then attack, activate double or nothing, negate its effect, or negate its attack, it goes up to 10k, swing again, and you won the game. It's no TK maker. Baguska, just to stall in case we need to. Tornado Dragon to pop back row. Exciton Knight, because it blows boards. Daigusto Emerald, because it's newly limited, and I don't understand why they limited it, but it's going to be in like every rank 4 deck now. Abyss Dweller, because Abyss Dweller helps in a lot of matchups. And the Break Sword, because you have a bunch of level 3s. But usually I just go for Max and then Boral Sword. You could potentially maybe drop one of the cards in the extra deck, maybe a Max, if you just wanted to play 2 Max, and play a Boral Sword or Boral Load, so you'd have more options there to go into. But I feel like the Boral Sword and the Utopia does enough to OTK. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this one. It's a really fun deck that I highly recommend that you build. It's not even, you can get the deck for less than about $100, I would say. Probably the main deck and the extra deck, besides the Boral Sword, for less than $100. These are dirt cheap. The only thing that's expensive in this entire deck is Caspar and Starfire, which I don't know how much they are because they keep fluctuating. So that's it, guys, for the video. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell in there so you can become a part of the notification squad, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you around, guys.